The tape drive in Houston kept spinning, but nothing came back. A thin strip of magnetic tape rolled through the recorder inside Mission Control, feeding a system that expected constant words from orbit. Skylab 4 was overhead, fully active, fully operational, and yet the audio channel stayed empty long enough for the room to change behavior around the silence. Controllers leaned in closer to headsets that had stopped delivering meaning. Displays still ticked forward. Timelines still advanced. The station still orbited Earth every 90 minutes. But the feedback loop that made it controllable had gone missing inside the system itself. No one called it failure at first. NASA Mission Control had seen delays before. A few seconds of signal loss, a pass behind Earth, a momentary blackout. But this was different. The tape kept moving without interruption, as if waiting for a conversation that refused to begin again. And in that gap, the entire scheduling system kept running anyway. The Skylab 4 crew was still up there, running experiments, following procedures, or at least they were supposed to be. Every action depended on tight coordination with Houston, minute-by-minute adjustments, real-time instructions, constant correction. But Houston could no longer confirm anything. The visual anchor appears here, a spinning tape drive in a silent control room, turning steadily, recording nothing but expectation. Inside Mission Control, senior flight controllers watched the board fill with tasks that had no confirmation line beneath them. One controller finally broke protocol and asked a question that should not have mattered. If they cannot hear us, are we still controlling them? No one answered quickly. Because the system was designed around a belief no one had questioned out loud. That communication was not just support. It was enforcement. And Skylab 4 was proving that assumption fragile. Movement 1 ends here, inside a working system that no longer knows if it is connected. The first warning came not as failure, but as delay. Skylab 4 began slipping its schedule. Not dramatically, not dangerously, just enough to break synchronization. Tasks shifted minutes out of alignment. Sleep cycles drifted. Experiments overlapped in ways that required correction from Houston. But correction required contact. And contact required a channel that kept going quiet at the wrong moments. The tape drive in Houston sped up slightly to compensate for lost segments. Controllers replayed transmissions, searching for missing context. Every gap created more dependence on interpretation. Every interpretation required more communication. That was the first hidden dependency. Not the spacecraft, not the hardware. The belief that real-time control could survive continuous distance. The visual anchor returns, the tape still spinning, but now it is being rewound, then played again, then paused, as if Houston is trying to force meaning out of silence itself. At this stage, Mission Control still assumed the structure was intact, the crew was disciplined, the systems were reliable, the schedule was aggressive but achievable. Any breakdown had to be temporary. Then the crew changed the rules without asking permission. Skylab 4 began prioritizing tasks differently. They delayed non-critical items. They grouped procedures. They adjusted workload on their own timing. From the ground, this looked like drift. But from orbit, it was survival. The dependency began to reveal itself. Houston was not just guiding the mission, it was continuously validating it. Without validation, the schedule became fiction, and fiction could still run a spacecraft for a while.
But never stabilizing.
The tape drive slowed. Controllers realized something uncomfortable. They were not watching Skylab 4 operate. They were watching reports of operation being constructed in real time. And if those reports stopped, so did their authority. Then came the silence. December 28th, 1973. Skylab 4 cut radio contact for an entire day. No warnings, no negotiation, just silence. Inside Mission Control, the visual anchor became unbearable. The tape drive still spun, but now it was recording only dead air. Controllers checked frequencies, checked antennas, checked timing. Nothing changed the output. The system that depended on constant feedback had lost its mirror, and the schedule kept moving forward anyway. Movement 3 begins when Mission Control tries to stabilize what it can no longer confirm. At first, they assumed emergency, a technical failure, a communication blackout. Recovery protocols were prepared, backup channels activated, every standard response deployed. But Skylab 4 was not responding to any of them. The station continued orbiting. Systems remained stable. Power levels held. Life support functioned normally. The only missing piece was obedience to real-time instruction. That changed the meaning of everything. The dependency was no longer hidden, it was exposed. Houston was not operating a mission. It was operating a conversation. And without response, the structure collapsed into uncertainty. The visual anchor returns again. The tape drive now looping the same empty segment. Controllers watching silence repeat like data. A rehook lands here. But the next pass over ground stations revealed something no one had planned for. Skylab 4 was functioning better without constant interruption. The crew had reorganized their workload. They were rested, they were coordinated, they were no longer reacting to continuous external correction. The station was stable, more stable than before. That stability created a new pressure, because it suggested that control itself might have been the problem. Now the dependency became unavoidable. Mission Control could not resume authority without admitting it had been partially unnecessary in the first place. But it also could not abandon authority without redefining its entire role. The tape drive slowed again. Not from malfunction, from hesitation. Every controller understood the implication. If Skylab 4 could operate independently for a day, then the system had been over-engineered around constant oversight. But admitting that meant rewriting operational doctrine in real time. The visual anchor returns for the fourth time. The tape drive now stopped, then restarted manually. Human intervention replacing automated expectation. Movement 4 is where fragility appears. When communication resumed, it did not restore the old system. It exposed its limits. Controllers attempted to reassert strict scheduling, but the crew now pushed back, not emotionally, operationally. They had proven they could manage workload without constant instruction. Every directive from Houston now carried a new question behind it. Is this necessary or just traditional control? That question weakened every command. The dependency had inverted. Mission Control depended on Skylab 4's compliance to validate its own authority. But Skylab 4 no longer needed continuous validation to function. The system could not return to its previous shape. Then the final breakdown arrived, not as failure, but as redesign pressure. Movement 5 begins with consequence, not discovery. NASA could not treat Skylab 4 as an anomaly. It had to treat it as evidence. The continuous command loop was reduced. Crew autonomy increased. Scheduling became less rigid. Communication shifted from constant correction to structured updates. The dependency that once seemed essential was revealed as optional under stress. The visual anchor returns one last time. The tape drive still spinning, but now only during scheduled intervals. Silence is no longer a failure state. It is part of the system. The consequence reached beyond Skylab 4. Future missions no longer assumed continuous human correction was required for survival in orbit. Control shifted from real-time enforcement to delayed coordination. And that changed everything about how humans operated above Earth. Because the mission did not fail from distance.